All right, well, I mentioned a little bit of drama at Sydney. Chad Warner is out with a calf injury. They're saying it's not too serious, but that's the game and the club where you want to start with your first crack, King.
Yeah, and I want to start with the biggest of Sydney Swans, the trumpeter swan, if you like. They're the biggest of swans you can find, Addo. 6 foot tall they are. I'll give you a little bit of history lesson later on, or a National Geographic session later. But they need Brodie Grundy to get back to meaningful, impactful AFL footy, because right now that ain't the model or the product they're getting. His ball use is awful. Over the last 6 weeks, he's rated 508th from damage from ball use. There would have only been 600 players play the game in that period of time. So they've got to get this, they've got to change this, and quickly. They've got to demand more of the big guy. He's having no influence as a ruckman, and he's having no influence around the ground. He's taken 3 intercept marks in 6 weeks. He's been involved in 5 scores in the last month of football. That is awful. They are awful numbers for your big signing. You need to deliver more than this. He needs to have some influence. So the 3 intercept marks, to put that in context, guys like Cameron from Collingwood and Tim English have had 15. He's had 3. So what are you doing? Your tap work is not where it should be. He's ranked 15th over the last 6 weeks of hits to advantage. And if you do that by percentage, it's even worse. So 1 in every 4.5 going to a teammate. So this is an issue that if it doesn't correct, will run them aground. As good as Warner has been, I know he's not there this week, as good as Heaney's going and Errol Goulden and Parker back into the middle and Rowbottom, these guys, if the big bloke doesn't stand up, they're in real trouble. He's recruited for this time of the year. You can see the clearance numbers over the last month. Did they really return to dominant best last week? +3? -10, -12, -10 the previous 3 weeks. So I think it's on him to drag himself out of this mire and get going, because it's time. Mid-August, it's time to get rolling. Couple of weeks into a final series, and be the guy that they went after. Be the guy that they invested heavily in the off-season, because, boy, they need him.
It felt like it was one of the huge moves of the off-season, didn't it?
Yeah, the ball use has been an issue all year. So do you reckon he just needs to simplify his game? Stick to just what his role is. Hit down to the gun midfielders, get down the line and try and intercept and support the tools, and the rest keep out of the way. Because he has been at times, I know, at Collingwood towards the end, they were getting frustrated with grabbing it out of the ruck and just indiscriminately kicking and handballing it. It really got to them. So do you want to see him just keep it a bit simpler?
I want to see him do something, whether it's around the ground, get involved with meaningful possessions. He's kicked 2 goals for the year. Like, what are you actually doing? Like, what is your function in this team right now? I mean, I'll be honest with you. You could look at other options for this function. If they had another challenging ruckman, would they look at it?
Well,
I don't know.
They don't, do they?
No,
so,
well, they don't. But that's why.
So it's on Brodie then.
That's exactly why I'm saying it's Brodie's time to stand up, because those numbers are the numbers of a player that's barely surviving on your list, let alone your big boom off-season recruit.
So just quickly, Joe, did they solve anything last week in your mind, Sydney?
Oh, I'm not convinced. I thought for 3 quarters they still weren't winning contests inside their forward 50. It still looked an issue until the superstars showed up. There's just a little number just to keep an eye on, though, with Sydney. We know they've been horrible starting games, and John Longmire's spoken about it all year, but just be careful. If they do win the first quarter, shut the gate. They will win the game. That's the only part of their game that has been a massive concern. But I mean, you're a bit more convinced with Sydney. You thought they were pretty good against the Pies?
I just thought Warner and Heaney getting back to form.
So what about with no Warner? If they've been relying on their 3 superstars, and now there's only Goulden and Heaney.
They won't be the same without Papley until Papley gets back, which is, we think, next week.
Could be next week.
Yeah.
So who knows? Well, if the Bombers can upset them, they'll need to win the last round against Adelaide to make sure of top spot. Who do you think would make more of a difference to a team's premiership chances out of the 2 potentially available defenders, Josh Battle and Tom Barrass?
I'm a massive Josh Battle fan. I think that he's the perfect defender in a lot of ways, and I think he'd be a great acquisition. I'm a bit of a hold on Tom Barrass. And I think that when you look at the work of Jeremy McGovern around him, beside him, behind him, he covers for so many flaws in their makeup as a team and in their makeup as a back 6. And I think he helps Tom Barrass more than any other player in that lineup. If you really have a drill down on his numbers, yes, he's elite for spoils. So his ability to get a spoil in is terrific. I'm not overpaying for a one-on-one spoiler. We've talked about McGovern all year, about we need him to do more. We need to be more for those around him. He loses too many one-on-ones for me. He loses 1 in 3. The AFL average is 1 in 4. But when you're talking about this level of acquisition and this cost, this investment, you need better than that. 8 intercepts is above average. Yep, 4 intercept marks, terrific. He's had 39 goals kicked on him this year. So that's a lot of goals. Dixon, Norton, Lafau, Membry all kicked 3 or more. So just be wary of what you're buying here. Because I think Battle's the acquisition I'm charging at, not necessarily Barrass.
It's a massive difference if they get both. That is significant. I suppose the question for St Kilda and for St Kilda people is Josh Battle's terrific defender, can use the ball as well. But what's more important is that keeping Josh Battle a wonderful defender or getting that early pick and having pick at the moment 5 and 6 and being able to really replenish their midfield that they're trying to get and get the next Rosie Butters, the next Sarong Hayden Young. Can they get that if they get 5 and 6, or do they want to keep Josh Battle, who is an elite defender in the competition?
I think if you look at the premiership jigsaw, the corner pieces in any jigsaw are the prime pieces, and I think that Battle can be one of those. They got Frost and they've used Weddle, the Hawks in those roles. They're just a fraction undersized and a fraction off. I think the Battle could do that role. And Barrass would be a good acquisition, but I'm just not sure he's at the level that people are talking about. And he's almost 29 years of age, so I'm a little bit Ben Mackay-ish on that one.
OK, we'll interpret that
Yeah.
as we get into our firecrackers, which will be a bit sharper pace. All right, do you back your guns, your injured guns, to come straight back in for the finals to perform? Definitely.
Yes, your prime guns. We're not talking Tom Hawkins or any of them. I'm talking your prime like Chad Warner and Charlie Curnow and these guys, absolutely, yeah.
You're talking Papley straight back in?
Yep.
What do you do if you're Port Adelaide and you've got that mix in the forward line?
Todd Marshall's not walking straight back in if George Yardies is fit. I'm keeping George Yardies, Dixon and Radigalea as my 3 tools. Marshall might miss out.
What about Hawkins?
Hawkins is an interesting one. I just wonder whether the club's been so good to Tom. Does he have to hold them hostage to playing him in that last game? If he doesn't get up around 24, I think he should say, you know what, you've been great for me. Let me not put pressure on you for a finals campaign. He's missed too much footy now. And I think they've looked pretty good without him, to be fair.
Would you pick him for 24 though and give him a chance?
Yeah, for 24 I would, but if it's not 24, I think he's got to go to them and say, hey, thanks for everything. Let's do a walk around the oval and say thanks to the fans.
All right. Should the highly rated assistants be a bit braver and put their hand up for the West Coast job?
A lot of pulling out, aren't they? I see Andrew McQualter's now one of the front runners for West Coast. Oh, look, you've got to be careful. It's going to be a long rebuild. So if you are putting your hand up, you'd want to know the club are going to stick with you for at least 5 years to give you a chance. Otherwise, maybe you can sit and wait a bit longer.
I think Don Pike's doing this perfectly. He's talking to people who don't want the job, Hutto. It's just massaging nicely for Pikey to come in.
Has Isaac Rankin done enough to be All-Australian?
No, he's missed too many games.
No, he's going to be 1 game short of the 7-game threshold.
Yep.
Why do they count? Not just count how many good games you've played. Why does it be how many you've missed? If you get 16 best on grounds and get 48 Brownlow votes, they say, sorry, you didn't make the criteria. You cannot be All-Australian. Crazy.
Now, there's a whole heap I'm not going to get to, but should Anthony Koutafidis run for Lord Mayor or should he make a comeback?
Yeah, Lord Mayor, why not? Kuta for Lord Mayor, I like it.
Put him at centre-half back on the weekend, see how he goes.
All right. And off the cuff, if they're making room for Sam Wiedemann to play for Essendon, should they be having a farewell game for Dyson Heppel?
Yes, I think they should have played Dyson Heppel instead of Sam Wiedemann. Yep.
That's a disappointing error.
Well, they've still got a week to go, I guess, haven't they? All right, let's get into
Not at home. This is the last home game.
Yeah.